On a busy autumn evening, a generous-hearted man named Luca was walking through the crowded streets of Lyrone, a chaotic but vibrant city. As he moved through the crowd, he noticed a beggar sitting in a corner, his back bent, his face marked by fatigue and time. Luca, moved by his innate empathy, decided to approach. Subscribe to the channel now and activate the bell so you don't miss other exciting stories like this one. With a shaking hand, Luca took a €100 note from his wallet and bent down to hand it to the man. Just as he was reaching out, something caught his eye. A long, thin scar ran across the palm of the beggar's hand. It was a scar that Luca recognized immediately. A shiver ran through him as his memory took him back in time, 10 years earlier, to a cold night when his life had been hanging by a thread. 10 years ago, Luca was the victim of a terrible car accident. His car, out of control due to a brake malfunction, crashed into a tree on the outskirts of the city. Trapped in the wreckage, with serious injuries that threatened his life, Luca was convinced that he would die. But at that very moment, fate had decided otherwise. A man, a doctor, had appeared out of nowhere and done everything he could to save his life. That man was Matteo, a highly talented surgeon who, despite the risks, had stopped to help him, working side by side with the paramedics to extract him from the car and stabilize his condition. Now, as Lucas stared at that unmistakable scar, he realized he was in front of Matteo. "Matteo?" he whispered in disbelief. The beggar looked up, surprised that someone would recognize him. How do you know me?" he asked in a broken voice, visibly shaken. Luca, with a lump in his throat, explained who he was and how Matteo had saved his life 10 years earlier. Matteo lowered his head, as if the weight of the past had suddenly become unbearable. With tears in his eyes, Matteo began to tell his story. After years of a brilliant career, his hands, precious tools for his work, had been struck by aggressive arthritis. He could no longer operate. He had desperately sought treatment, squandering all his savings on ineffective treatments. His family supported him, but over time, depression engulfed him, pushing him to take refuge in alcohol. Feeling like a burden, Matteo abandoned his family and found himself wandering the streets aimlessly, without hope. If you are touched by this story, leave a like to support the channel. Luca listened in silence, his heart full of compassion. Seeing the man who had once been a brilliant surgeon reduced to a life of misery was a blow hard to swallow. However, Luca knew he couldn't turn away. "I can't leave you here, Matteo," he said firmly. "Come with me, I'll take you to my house. Matteo hesitated, but Luca's persistence and kindness convinced him. When they arrived at Luca's house, his wife Elena welcomed Matteo with the same generosity as her husband. They offered him a hot meal, clean clothes, and the opportunity to take a shower. It was the first time, after years of living on the streets, that Matteo felt treated like a person again. As the night wore on, the conversation flowed between the three, and Matteo felt more and more at ease. Between one confession and another, Matteo revealed his shame for having abandoned his family. He no longer had the courage to contact them, despite the nostalgia that tormented him every day. Luca, understanding the gravity of the pain that Matteo carried inside, proposed to help him reconcile with his loved ones. "You have to find your family again," he told him with conviction. "It's never too late to start over." Luca's words deeply touched Matteo, who accepted the help with gratitude. In the following days, Luca contacted Matteo's old friends and acquaintances, gathering clues as to where his family might be. After weeks of searching, they finally managed to track them down. The evening Luca accompanied Matteo to his family's house was full of tension. When the doorbell rang, Matteo's heart was beating wildly. The door opened, and on the other side, a woman appeared. It was Clara, Matteo's wife, her eyes full of surprise and emotion. Behind her, their children looked on in disbelief. Matteo stepped forward, tears streaming down his face, and apologized for all the pain he had caused. Clara, after a long silence, hugged him, holding him tightly. It was a hug full of forgiveness, but also of hope for the future. In your opinion, what would you have done in Matteo's place? Leave your comment below. I would love to know your opinion. Over time, Matteo embarked on a journey of rehabilitation, addressing his alcohol addiction and trying to rebuild his life. Although he would never return to surgery, he found new purpose helping out at a local clinic, where he offered support to patients and their families, proving that his medical heart had not been broken, but simply transformed. The story of Luca and Matteo is a powerful testimony of how compassion and gratitude can change lives, creating an unbreakable bond between those who give and those who receive help. A man saved the life of another in a moment of desperation, and 10 years later, that act of selflessness was reciprocated, giving both a second chance. A story that teaches us that even in the darkest moments, there is always a light of hope ready to shine. If this story touched you, leave a like and watch the next video that might touch you just as deeply.